In the vast expanse of the Egyptian desert, where golden sands meet an endless sky, there exists a secret that has been buried for over 4,000 years. A secret about an empire within an empire, a brotherhood of architects who changed the face of ancient civilization forever. This is the story of the pyramid architects and their most controversial creation, the Blackened Designs. The year was 1850 BC. Egypt's Middle Kingdom was at the height of its power under Pharaoh Amenemhat III. The age of the Great Pyramids of Giza had passed, becoming distant memories of a golden era that seemed impossible to recreate. The old kingdom builders had taken their secrets to their tombs, and for centuries, Egyptian architects struggled to match the precision and grandeur of those ancient monuments. But there was a group who refused to accept defeat. Deep within the royal palace at Toi, the capital of the Middle Kingdom, a secret society of architects gathered in chambers lit only by oil lamps. They called themselves the keepers of the sacred geometry, and they were obsessed with one singular purpose: to rediscover the lost knowledge of pyramid construction and surpass the achievements of their ancestors. Leading this brotherhood was a man named Senusretankh, whose name meant Senusret lives. He was the royal architect appointed directly by Amenemhat III, but his true allegiance was to something far older than any pharaoh. Senusretankh claimed to possess fragments of ancient texts, scrolls that dated back to the time of Imhotep himself, the legendary architect who had built the very first pyramid for Pharaoh Djoser nearly 1,000 years earlier. These texts spoke of sacred proportions, of geometric patterns that existed not just in stone and mortar, but in the very fabric of the cosmos. They described how the pyramids were designed as more than tombs. They were celestial machines, mathematical prayers carved into the desert, connecting earth to the heavens through pure geometric harmony. The brotherhood worked in absolute secrecy. By day, they supervised construction projects throughout Egypt, building temples and tombs for nobles. But at night, they gathered to study the ancient wisdom, to perform calculations that would have baffled even the greatest minds of their time. They measured the movements of stars with instruments of their own design, tracked the sun's path across the sky with precision that wouldn't be matched for millennia, and developed mathematical formulas that incorporated the golden ratio into every aspect of their work. Senusretankh understood something that others had forgotten. The pyramids weren't just monuments to dead kings. They were expressions of universal truths, geometric representations of the order underlying all creation. The angle of each face, the ratio of height to base, the alignment with cardinal directions and specific stars, all of these elements worked together to create structures that resonated with cosmic frequencies. But knowledge alone wasn't enough. The Brotherhood needed to prove their theories, to demonstrate that they had truly recovered the lost wisdom of the ancients. They needed a patron willing to fund their most ambitious project, and they found one in Amenemhat III. The pharaoh was desperate to leave his mark on history, to build something that would rival the great pyramids of his ancestors. When Senusretankh approached him with promises of architectural wonders that would surpass even the Great Pyramid of Khufu, Amenemhat couldn't refuse. He granted the Brotherhood unlimited resources, thousands of workers, and most importantly, complete freedom to design as they saw fit. The location chosen was Dahshur, a royal necropolis south of Cairo where earlier pharaohs had built their pyramids. It was sacred ground, blessed by the gods, and perfectly positioned for the astronomical alignments the Brotherhood required. Construction began with ceremonies and rituals that hadn't been performed in centuries. Priests chanted ancient prayers as the first foundation stones were laid, aligning them with such precision that modern engineers would later marvel at the accuracy. But the Brotherhood had a secret plan, one they revealed to no one, not even the pharaoh himself. They would build this pyramid using revolutionary techniques, incorporating knowledge that went beyond anything attempted before. And at the heart of their design lay the Blackened Designs, sacred geometric patterns that they claimed would unlock powers beyond human comprehension. The Blackened Designs were based on patterns the Brotherhood had discovered in their ancient texts. These weren't ordinary architectural blueprints. They were intricate networks of geometric shapes, sacred symbols layered upon each other in ways that created new meanings, new resonances. circles intersected with triangles, hexagons nested within pyramids, and at the center of it all was a symbol that no one outside the Brotherhood was permitted to see. The architects claimed these designs came from a time before Egypt itself, from a mythical age when humans possessed knowledge that had been lost in some ancient catastrophe. Whether they truly believed this, or whether it was elaborate mythology to justify their innovations, we may never know. But the passion with which they pursued their work was undeniable. As construction progressed, strange things began to happen. Workers reported seeing lights in the pyramid at night, geometric patterns that seemed to glow from within the stone itself. Others spoke of dreams, visions of ancient cities and advanced civilizations that had mastered sciences Egypt was only beginning to understand. The Brotherhood encouraged these stories, using them to motivate the workforce and maintain an aura of mystery around their project. The pyramid's design was revolutionary. Unlike the smooth-sided pyramids of Giza, this structure would incorporate the Blackened Designs directly into its architecture. The inner chambers were arranged according to precise geometric formulas, creating spaces that the Brotherhood claimed would amplify spiritual energies and facilitate the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife. The most sacred part of the design was the pyramidion, the capstone that would crown the completed pyramid. The Brotherhood spent years crafting this single piece, carving it from a solid block of dark basalt that they claimed had fallen from the sky, a meteorite that carried cosmic energies within its crystalline structure. The pyramidion was covered in inscriptions, geometric patterns intertwined with hieroglyphs in ways that created multiple layers of meaning. On its four faces, the Blackened Designs were rendered in exquisite detail. Winged sun discs flanked by sacred serpents, geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change depending on how the light struck them, and mathematical formulas disguised as religious texts. The pyramidion embodied everything the Brotherhood believed about the connection between geometry, spirituality, and the cosmos. But creating the Blackened Designs came at a terrible cost. The Brotherhood became increasingly obsessed with perfection, demanding impossibly precise measurements and calculations. Workers who made mistakes were replaced, and eventually the architects themselves began to suffer. Senusretankh drove his followers mercilessly, convinced that any deviation from the sacred patterns would doom the entire project. As years passed, tensions grew. The pyramid was taking longer to build than anyone had anticipated, and its unconventional design was drawing criticism from traditional architects and priests who saw the Brotherhood's innovations as dangerous departures from proven methods. Whispers spread through the palace that the architects had become heretics, that their Blackened Designs were blasphemous attempts to usurp powers that belonged to the gods alone. Amenemhat III found himself caught between supporting his architects and appeasing the growing opposition. The pyramid had already consumed enormous resources, and there was no guarantee it would ever be completed. Worse, structural problems were becoming apparent. The innovative design that looked so perfect on papyrus was proving difficult to execute in stone and mud brick. The foundation, though precisely aligned, was sinking under the pyramid's weight. The complex internal chamber system, designed according to the Blackened Designs' geometric formulas, was creating stress points in the structure. Cracks began to appear in the walls, and some sections of the pyramid started to subside unevenly. The Brotherhood refused to acknowledge these problems. To them, any criticism of the pyramid was criticism of their sacred knowledge, of the Blackened Designs themselves. They insisted that the structural issues were temporary, that once the pyramid was completed and the pyramidion installed, the cosmic energies it channeled would stabilize the entire structure through means that transcended ordinary physics. This claim was too much for many Egyptians to accept. The backlash grew fierce, with priests declaring that the Brotherhood had overstepped their authority and offended the gods with their arrogance. Traditional architects published detailed critiques of the pyramid's design, pointing out its flaws and predicting its eventual collapse. Senusretankh defended his work with increasingly desperate arguments. He claimed that those who criticized the Blackened Designs simply lacked the wisdom to understand them, that the pyramid's problems were sabotage by enemies who feared the knowledge the Brotherhood possessed. His followers became militant, forming an armed guard around the construction site and refusing to allow anyone they deemed unworthy to even view the pyramid. The situation reached a crisis point when a section of the pyramid's interior chambers collapsed during construction, killing several workers. Investigations revealed that the elaborate geometric design of the chamber system had created architectural weaknesses that traditional methods would have avoided. The Brotherhood's insistence on form over function had led directly to tragedy. Amenemhat III had no choice but to act. He ordered construction halted and demanded that Senusretankh explain how he planned to complete the pyramid safely. The architect's response was to seal himself and his closest followers inside the pyramid, claiming they would emerge only when the gods themselves vindicated their work. For 3 days and nights, the Brotherhood remained inside their pyramid, performing rituals according to the Blackened Designs, chanting prayers to ancient powers, and making elaborate offerings. When they finally emerged, Senusretankh announced that the gods had spoken to him directly. The pyramid could not be completed according to the original plan. The Blackened Designs were too powerful, too far ahead of their time for this age of the world. But he had received divine instructions for a modification. The pyramid would be completed using more traditional methods, but the Blackened Designs would be preserved in the pyramidion, which would be buried separately, hidden away until a future time when humanity would be ready to understand its secrets. If you've been fascinated by this forgotten chapter of ancient Egyptian history, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories about lost civilizations and the mysteries they left behind. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode exploring the secrets of the ancient world. Whether Amenemhat believed this story or simply wanted to salvage something from the enormous investment he'd made, he agreed to Senusretankh's proposal. Construction resumed, but with conventional architects now supervising the work. The Brotherhood was relegated to advisory roles, their influence broken. The pyramid was eventually completed, though not according to the Blackened Designs. It stood at Dahshur, a monument to both ambition and failure, rising 75 meters high with walls that leaned inward at a steep 57-degree angle. But without the sacred geometry and precise proportions the Brotherhood had intended, it was structurally compromised from the start. The limestone casing that covered its mud brick core was indeed installed, but over the centuries it would be stripped away by later builders who used the fine stone for other projects. This left the dark mud brick core exposed, giving the pyramid the appearance that would eventually earn it the name the Black Pyramid, though for very different reasons than the Brotherhood had imagined. As for the pyramidion, Senusretankh kept his word. The capstone covered in Blackened Designs was carefully wrapped and buried in the sand near the pyramid, but not atop it. The Brotherhood performed one final ceremony, dedicating the pyramidion to future generations who would possess the wisdom to understand its mysteries. Then they dispersed. Some records suggest that Senusretankh and his closest followers left Egypt entirely, traveling south into Nubia or east toward the lands beyond the Red Sea, carrying their knowledge with them. Others claim they remained in Egypt but abandoned architecture, becoming priests or scholars, their revolutionary designs forgotten. The Brotherhood story might have ended there, remembered only as a cautionary tale about the dangers of pride and innovation pushed too far. But the Blackened Designs themselves refused to be forgotten entirely. Over the following centuries, fragments of the Brotherhood's teachings surfaced in unexpected places. Temple inscriptions occasionally incorporated geometric patterns that seemed to echo the Blackened Designs. Certain mystery schools taught initiates sacred geometry techniques that bore suspicious similarities to Senusretankh's methods. And artifacts discovered in tombs sometimes featured symbolic decorations that matched descriptions of the Brotherhood's sacred symbols. In 1900 AD, more than 37 centuries after the Brotherhood's dissolution, archaeologists discovered the pyramidion of Amenemhat III buried in the sand exactly where ancient records suggested the Brotherhood had hidden it. The dark basalt capstone stood over 4 feet tall, weighing nearly 5 tons, its polished surface still bearing the intricate inscriptions and geometric patterns that Senusretankh and his followers had carved so long ago. Modern scholars examining the pyramidion were astonished by its sophistication. The geometric patterns incorporated mathematical relationships that wouldn't be formally described until the Renaissance. The astronomical symbols suggested knowledge of celestial mechanics that was supposedly beyond ancient Egyptian science. And the way different layers of meaning were encoded into the same symbols demonstrated a level of conceptual complexity that challenged assumptions about ancient thought. Some researchers have claimed to detect magnetic anomalies in the basalt, suggesting the Brotherhood's stories about meteoritic stone might have had some truth to them. Others have noted that the inscriptions include references to stellar constellations and mathematical constants that seem impossibly precise for the time period. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the pyramidion is what it tells us about the Brotherhood itself. Here was a group of individuals who lived 4,000 years ago, in an age we typically think of as primitive, yet they were wrestling with questions about the nature of reality, the relationship between mathematics and spirituality, and the possibility of encoding cosmic wisdom into physical structures. They failed to complete their pyramid according to their vision, but they succeeded in creating something that still puzzles and inspires us today. The Black Pyramid itself stands as a monument to their ambition, though not in the way they intended. Its darkened appearance, its structural problems, and its eventual abandonment by Amenemhat himself, who chose to be buried in a different pyramid, all testify to the dangers of pursuing innovation without adequate testing and preparation. Yet there's something almost noble in the Brotherhood's failure. They dreamed of surpassing the ancients, of recovering lost knowledge and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They believed that architecture could be more than mere construction, that it could be a spiritual practice, a form of prayer rendered in stone and geometry. The Blackened Designs represented this vision in its purest form. Whether they were genuinely ancient wisdom recovered from forgotten texts, or brilliant innovations dressed up in mythological language doesn't ultimately matter. What matters is that a group of people 4 millennia ago dared to imagine that human beings could encode meaning and power into the very structures they built, that architecture could bridge the gap between earth and cosmos, between mortal and divine. Modern architects studying the pyramidion have attempted to recreate some of the Blackened Designs using computer modeling. The results are startling. The geometric patterns, when rendered in 3 dimensions, create optical illusions and mathematical harmonies that suggest the Brotherhood understood principles of fractal geometry and harmonic resonance that wouldn't be formally discovered for thousands of years. Some of these modern researchers have become convinced that the Brotherhood was onto something genuine, that their failure to complete the pyramid, according to the Blackened Designs, was a tragedy that deprived humanity of knowledge we're only now beginning to rediscover. Others remain skeptical, arguing that we're projecting modern understanding onto ancient work and seeing patterns that may be coincidental rather than intentional. The truth, as usual, probably lies somewhere between these extremes. Senusretankh and his Brotherhood were clearly brilliant individuals who pushed the boundaries of their civilization's knowledge. But they were also products of their time, working within the limitations of ancient technology and scientific understanding. The Blackened Designs represented the highest achievement they could conceptualize, incorporating everything they knew about mathematics, astronomy, and sacred symbolism into a unified architectural vision. That this vision proved impossible to fully realize doesn't diminish its significance. Every great leap forward in human knowledge begins with someone imagining what might be possible, even if the technology and understanding to achieve that vision don't yet exist. The Brotherhood served that role for ancient Egypt, preserving and extending architectural knowledge during a period when it might otherwise have been lost entirely. Their legacy lived on in ways they could never have anticipated. The mathematical principles they explored influenced later Egyptian temple design. The astronomical alignments they calculated informed sacred calendars, and the spiritual philosophy underlying the Blackened Designs, the idea that geometric patterns could embody cosmic truths, spread throughout the ancient world, influencing Greek, Roman, and eventually Islamic sacred geometry. Today, the pyramidion of Amenemhat III resides in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, one of the finest examples of ancient Egyptian craftsmanship and one of the largest surviving pyramidia in existence. Visitors can see the Blackened Designs for themselves, the geometric patterns and hieroglyphic inscriptions that Senusretankh carved with such care and hope 4,000 years ago. The Black Pyramid still stands at Dahshur, though it's largely ruined, its dark mud brick core exposed to the elements, slowly eroding back into the desert from which it was built. It stands as both achievement and warning, a reminder of what human ambition can create and what can happen when vision outpaces capability. But the real monument to the Brotherhood isn't the failed pyramid, or even the pyramidion that survived. It's the idea they represented, the notion that human beings can reach for the transcendent through mathematics and geometry, that we can encode meaning into the structures we build, that architecture can be more than shelter, more than status symbol, more than tomb. This idea, this vision of architecture as a bridge between the physical and metaphysical, between the human and divine, is the Brotherhood's true legacy. It survived the collapse of their pyramid, outlived their civilization, and continues to inspire architects, mathematicians, and spiritual seekers to this day. The Blackened Designs may never be fully understood. The Brotherhood took many of their secrets to their graves, and the knowledge they possessed has been filtered through 4,000 years of time, translated across languages, reinterpreted by countless generations. But the core insight remains accessible to anyone willing to look at the pyramidion with open eyes and mind. Geometry is not just a tool for measuring and building. It's a language for describing the fundamental patterns that underlie reality. The same ratios that govern the spiral of a seashell appear in the arrangement of galaxies. The same angles that create stable architectural forms can be found in the crystalline structure of minerals and the branching patterns of trees. The Brotherhood understood this intuitively, even if they lacked our modern scientific framework for describing it. They saw the universe as an expression of geometric principles, and they believed that by aligning their architecture with these principles, they could create structures that resonated with cosmic harmonies. Were they right? Did the Blackened Designs truly possess the power the Brotherhood claimed? We'll never know for certain, because the pyramid was never completed according to their plan, and the full expression of their vision exists only in fragments and educated guesses. But perhaps that's fitting. Perhaps the greatest creations are always the ones that remain slightly beyond our grasp, the visions that inspire us to keep reaching, keep imagining, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. The Brotherhood's failure to complete their pyramid according to the Blackened Designs doesn't make their vision less valuable. If anything, it makes it more poignant, more human. They were architects who dreamed of building more than monuments. They wanted to construct meaning itself, to give physical form to spiritual truths, to create structures that would still speak to people thousands of years in the future. And in that, at least, they succeeded beyond their wildest imaginings. Every time someone stands before the pyramidion in the museum, tracing the intricate geometric patterns with their eyes, wondering at the precision of the calculations and the beauty of the design, the Brotherhood's vision lives again. Every time an architect incorporates sacred geometry into a modern building, every time a mathematician discovers new harmonies in ancient proportions, every time someone looks at a pyramid and sees more than just a pile of stones, the Blackened Designs exert their influence across the millennia. The forgotten golden empire of the pyramid architects was never a literal empire in the political sense. It was an empire of ideas, of knowledge, of vision. Senusretankh and his followers ruled over a kingdom of geometric possibilities, mathematical truths, and architectural dreams. Their power came not from armies or wealth, but from their understanding of principles that transcended time and culture. And though their civilization fell, though their pyramid crumbled, though their names were forgotten by all but a few scholars, the empire they built in the realm of ideas endures. The Blackened Designs still speak to us, whispering of knowledge lost and wisdom waiting to be rediscovered, of the eternal human desire to build something that matters, something that lasts, something that connects us to truths larger than ourselves. In the end, that may be the greatest lesson of the Brotherhood. We measure success by whether projects are completed, where the buildings stand, where the names are remembered. But the true measure of any human endeavor isn't whether it succeeds by conventional standards. It's whether it expands our understanding, challenges our assumptions, and inspires future generations to dream bigger dreams. By that measure, the pyramid architects and their Blackened Designs were an unqualified success. They may not have built the pyramid they envisioned, but But they built something more enduring, a legacy of wonder, a tradition of sacred geometry, and a reminder that the greatest human achievements often come not from what we complete, but from what we dare to attempt. The desert sun sets over Dahshur, casting long shadows across the Black Pyramid's dark silhouette. The pyramidion rests in its climate-controlled case in Cairo, its geometric patterns as crisp and clear as the day they were carved. And somewhere in the infinite space between these two monuments, the spirit of the brotherhood endures, still reaching for the transcendent, still encoding cosmic wisdom into stone and symbol, still building their empire of sacred geometry one mind at a time. The forgotten golden empire of the pyramid architects may have fallen 4,000 years ago, but its true reign has only just begun. As humanity rediscovers the power of sacred geometry, as we begin to understand the mathematical harmonies underlying reality, as we learn once again to build structures that resonate with cosmic frequencies, we become inheritors of the Brotherhood's vision. The Blackened Designs await, patient as stone, eternal as mathematics, ready to reveal their secrets to those with the wisdom to understand and the courage to dream. The empire never ended, it simply waited for us to find it again. If you enjoyed uncovering this hidden chapter of ancient history, please hit the like button and share this video with anyone fascinated by ancient mysteries and lost knowledge. The story of the pyramid architects reminds us that the greatest treasures aren't always the ones we can see, but the ideas and visions that inspire us across the ages. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep exploring the mysteries of our incredible past.